So this is a few of my favorite things by Dr. Kenneth Stone. Hello.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm assuming you can hear me here right
Mhm.
now, so
Yep.
good deal. I did this presentation for our Huntington's clinic in November, and what I was looking at was some of the tricks that I talk to patients about in all settings, and so I've got three of my most favorite ones. These are useful for all of us. This is not unique to folks with neurological conditions or anything else. These are tricks that all of us can do at any times if we're dealing with some stuff. And so the way I'm going to do this presentation is I'm going to be looking at three different things: how to kind of handle irritable mood, how to help with procrastination, and then how to help get positive behaviors going, and then maybe keeping them going. And just some tricks. The tricks don't work, and I can't see myself on the screen. There I am. The tricks don't work this big. And if I could get back even farther, here we go. The tricks don't work this big, but they work about this big, and you will notice them. I've never had people say that they don't notice that it works at some level. These are things that work in my life, and I'll tell you how I apply them in my own life here. So we got these three things. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to tell some jokes. I always tell jokes during these times. And so I got some dad jokes this time here. And I've got two kiddos. So show that up on the camera there. There we go. There's their recent hockey pictures. And the younger of the two, the little guy, is the one who loves the dad jokes. And so we're doing dad jokes. And the very first thing I'm going to do is just tell a story about him rather than a dad joke right now. I am a clinical psychologist. And most psychologists have a PhD degree, but they have a different degree as well. It's called and in fact, here's my nameplate. Get it up here so you guys can see it. See if you can see that. And so I am Ken Stone, and it's a PsyD, so it's a doctorate. Oh my goodness, my picture just went off. There we go. It's a doctorate in clinical psychologist. So it's not a PhD, it's a PsyD. And my son, the little one, when he was maybe about 5 years old or so, kind of at the age when the kids are starting to learn how to read. And if you recall with young ones in your life, when they start to read, they read everything on billboards and signs and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I brought him into work one day, and he read this sign, and he said, "Ken Stone, Pissy D." So, I am a Pissy D doctor here, so that's what you get today from me. All right, so with that, let's talk about the first one. And what we're going to do here is talk about these three different tricks. At the end of each trick, I am going to open it up to questions. And so I'm going to talk about the principle. I'm going to talk about the research behind it. And then I'm going to talk about how people apply it and how I apply it. And the first one is irritable mood. Most of us get irritable mood. Most of us get it because the stress going on in our life. We're just kind of overwhelmed with whatever is going on out there. And we end up snapping at people. Typically the people we love. We're sarcastic, snappy, short, those kinds of things. And what we want to do with this, and typically the mistake most of us make is that after we've kind of said something snappy and snarky and shouldn't have said, most of us tend to make promises to ourselves and maybe to those that we were snarky towards. Oh, I'll do better. I promise I won't do that anymore. And so we bite our tongue. We try very hard not to say any of those irritable kinds of things. I'm okay with that, but that tends to not work well because we end up just biting our tongue, and then all of a sudden it just kind of comes out again at some other point. So I want to teach you a different way to manage irritable mood here. And again, when people have done this, including myself, you can tell that it works. Again, not this big kind of work, but this big kind of work. And you do it a few times, does pretty decently. And the principle is referred to as cognitive dissonance. You don't need to remember that name. AA has a great phrase. They always have some nice cliches. They use these principles and they say you fake it till you make it. Jesus said it in the Bible when he said something about where a man's treasure is, so is his heart, kind of thing. And so other disciplines, other professionals have figured some of these principles out. But the principle basically is anything that I put my blood, sweat, and tears into, I put the best of who I am into, my affinity towards that object or person goes up. As it goes up, my resiliency and bounce towards that improves. And so I'm less irritable. And let me give you an example that almost all of us have experienced at some point. And it's in car buying. So if I spend 30 grand on a brand new car, no one's allowed to eat or drink in it. If for some reason I get a smudge on it, if it's a nice Saturday out, I'm going to go out and get the bucket and the hose out and wash it. I park it at the end of the Target parking lot so that I don't get the door ding in it, even if it means I got to walk a half a mile kind of stuff. And so because I put 30 grand into this, I am automatically treating this car very nice, much nicer than I would if this was the old clunker. If I had the old clunker and I spilled a soda on it, I'd probably send the dog in to lick it up kind of thing. Whereas now, because I've spent this a lot of money on this, I tend to treat it better and automatically. It's not like it's a huge chore or anything like that. It's just because I want to keep it nice kind of thing. And so when I am irritable, I can use this principle to kind of help in the relationships. Let me go back to my picture again here of my kiddo, the little one. He's 11 now. He's still a milk spiller at meal times. And it doesn't matter how many times we have talked to him about spilling milk. He grabs the cup and he's like it's a shot glass, or like I don't know what he's doing, but he's just dumping it down his throat and then throwing it back down, and milk is everywhere, and then he's just reaching for whatever, and the milk is over there. When I am stressed and I've been having tough days at work or not feeling well or whatever it is, when he spills the milk, I'm yelling at him and criticizing him and maybe belittling him and saying, things like, do we need to get the little tippy cup out again? Are you 2 years old? Those kinds of statements. And afterwards, I think to myself, boy, that was some pretty lousy parenting. That's not what you went to school for and what you preach to your people when they come in and talk about parenting. You got to do better. And yes, if I swear to myself that I'm just going to bite my tongue, it may help a little bit. But what will work better is if I invest in myself, in my kid. And so when I'm catching myself being snarky to my 11-year-old for spilling milk, I will tell myself, good gravy, Ken, you gotta do better than that. That's silly. Yelling at a kid for spilled milk. It's just spilled milk. So what I will do then is I will start on purpose, spend time with him to try to get that affinity going again. And so we'll go play Xbox or PlayStation, or go watch one of his favorite cartoons on TV, or when the weather's nice and we can get outside and throw the baseball or football. Those are things I would normally do with him anyway. It's not like I'm doing something brand new that I normally wouldn't do, but I am now doing it intentionally to build the relationship up, to fake it till I make it kind of thing, to act as if I really love this kid who's going to spill milk kind of stuff. And by putting that energy and time into these things, my resiliency towards him builds up. As it does, when he spills the milk, I am less likely to snap and be sarcastic and to do the right kind of parenting and just, let's not cry over spilt milk. It's just spilt milk. Let's just get the rags out and clean it up. It's not a big deal kind of thing. This principle is good forever. It isn't one of these that you just use a few times and you're done. The downside of this is that this is something you use a couple of times, then you put it on the shelf, and then you maybe wait a month or two and then use it again. And let's use the used car example. Let's pretend that I bought the used car and we got a smudge on it, and I decide it's a nice Saturday out, so I'm going to get the bucket and the hose and the soap out, and I wash the car. And I love doing it, and it feels good, and I enjoy it. But if I had to wash that car every single day, at some point I'm going to hate that car. I'm not going to like it. And so these techniques with this one here, you use it for a day or two or three, and then you put it on the shelf, and then maybe pull it off a month or two later. We use this technique. I use this in therapy a lot when people are upset with work. How many of us, when in our jobs, we might not have liked administrators or liked some coworkers? So what we would do is we'd flip this around and use the same principles. I'm going to fake it till I make it. If I really loved work, what would I be doing? Hey, I might bring donuts in for everybody. And so I might run to Hornbacher's and buy a dozen donuts and set them out. By spending $10 and an extra, I don't know how long it would take me to pick up donuts at Hornbacher's, 15 minutes maybe. By doing that, my attitude and my resiliency improves. And my attitude at work just improves. And it happens behind the scenes, a little bit unconsciously or semi-unconsciously. It's not like I'm having to white knuckle it and get through it kind of thing. But if I had to buy donuts every day for everybody, at some point I would hate my coworkers. But by doing that, a time or two, that works. And again, not works this big, but does work this big type of stuff. Questions on this principle and questions on how to maybe make it work in your own life. Route to get at is how do I manage caregiver burnout? There's lots of steps to it, but one of them is doing this kind of thing. Purpose on intentionally doing nice things for the person we're irritated at. Well, then let's do a couple dad jokes here. I pulled these off of the internet here, so some of them are just terrible, but it is what it is. Two guys walked into a bar, but the third guy ducked. Yeah, no, these are dad jokes. This is what it's all about. What do you call it when a group of apes start a company? Monkey business. What would the Terminator be called in his retirement? The Exterminator. And the last one for this section, we'll do some between each of these. My boss told me to have a good day, so I went home. All right. We're next going to talk about procrastination. And typically the procrastination discussion comes up when people talk about, I don't have much motivation to do whatever it might be. Most of the time we look at motivation and people are saying, I don't have motivation to do my taxes, or I don't have motivation to get my dishes done, or I don't have motivation to get the weeds pulled, or whatever it might be. Typically in those situations, we're confusing motivation with procrastination. Motivation, I don't know of any tricks that's going to make me want to do taxes or pull the weeds. I don't like doing my taxes. I don't like getting the dishes done. I don't like pulling the weeds. And so there's no real great way that's all of a sudden going to make this a fun activity. And so I need to recognize, first of all, that when I'm thinking about motivation, it's really more about procrastination. Why do I procrastinate on the taxes? Why do I procrastinate on the weeds and the dishes and other tasks that are like that? And it really just boils down to, it's just not fun and there's no great reward to it on a lot of these tasks. So there's several tricks for procrastination, but this is probably the best studied one. It's referred to as the Premack principle. A guy named Premack studied this and proved that it's true. But grandmas forever have known this is true, even before this Premack guy found the principle back in the 1960s or 70s, somewhere back then. And the grandma's rule, the principle, the Premack principle is you pair a low frequency behavior with a high frequency behavior, and you increase the low frequency behavior. And that sounds kind of got too many big words in it and too psychobabble. Grandma's rule is the best way to remember this principle. And when we were all 6 years old and we'd go to grandma's house, we would say, "Grandma, can we have a cookie?" And grandma would say, "Yes, but after you eat your vegetables." And so grandma would pair a low frequency behavior, eating our veggies, with a high frequency behavior, eating a cookie. And think about the 6-year-old at grandma's house, especially if grandma made good cookies. If grandma said, "You got to eat your veggie first," the 6-year-old would eat the veggie first to get the cookie. Obviously, grandma's not in our, standing over our shoulder telling us what to do and not to do. So if we are in these situations where we don't have motivation to get the taxes done or get the weeds done or to get the dishes done, one of the ways we can do it is kind of apply that principle to ourselves. And we can be grandma to ourselves and reward ourselves for these behaviors. And let me give kind of an example of what I'm talking about in my own life, and it has to do with weeds. I hate weeding the yard. That's always been just not a fun task for me to do. And if I didn't reward myself, here's what the weekend would look like. Oh, I got to get the weeds done. I'd wake up Saturday morning. I think I'm going to go, I don't know, watch a little TV. And then the afternoon would roll around. It's just too hot out. I'm not going to go out and do this. I know I'll get up early Sunday morning when it's nice out and it's not too hot, and I'll get that done. And Sunday would roll around and I'd think, I'd rather play around on the computer than get the weeding done. I think I'll do it this afternoon, type of thing. And then when the afternoon would roll around, the weekend shot already. If I got started on it now, I wouldn't get it finished. So I probably should wait till next weekend. And so I would just keep procrastinating on some of these tactics. When I was a younger man, and I'm talking about 20 years ago or so, I would enjoy an occasional cigar. And so I would go to Happy Harry's, which is a local liquor store with cigars in it. For those of you that don't know, I'd go to Happy Harry's and I'd buy a cigar or two, and they'd put them in these little plastic bags and ziplock them up. And I would dangle that thing like the carrot on the stick in front of me. And I would do that before the weekend. And I would tell myself, "Okay, Ken, you get the weeding done Saturday morning. You can enjoy that cigar Saturday evening on the deck when you're barbecuing up the steak and having a glass of wine," kind of thing. And so by doing that, if I had the cigar there, 95% of the time, I would get the weeding done Saturday morning. And I would not procrastinate because I knew that I would have that reward there. If I didn't have the cigar, if I never got around to buying it, I tended to procrastinate. I would tend to make up excuses as to why I wouldn't get the weeding done. And the other thing that you got to remember with this principle is, let's go back to our 6-year-old kid at grandma's house. The 6-year-old kid at some point would say to grandma would say, "Eat your veggies first, and once you're done, you can have your cookie." The 6-year-old kid at some point was going to say, "Hey, Granny, let me have the cookie first, and I promise I'll eat the veggie later." And we all know that if we let the kid have the cookie, that the chances of the veggie being eaten aren't all that great. When the 6-year-old says it, they truly believe it. They're not lying. They're not thinking to themselves, "Oh, okay, I can pull a fast one on grandma." They're thinking, "Yes, I really will eat the veggies later on." We can lie to ourselves. So let's go back to my weeds and the cigar kind of thing. If I didn't do the weeds on Saturday morning, I might lie to myself on Saturday night when I wanted to light up that cigar while I was standing on the deck grilling up the steak and having a glass of wine. I might lie to myself and say, "I'll get it done Sunday morning." I know I will. And so I'm going to reward myself already because I know I'm going to do it. If I did that, the chances of me getting it done the next morning aren't all that great. So when we do this thing with this procrastination, grandma's rule or Premack's principle, we need to try to remember to use these rewards, but then to make sure that we don't lie to ourselves, because we will lie to ourselves on these things and give ourselves this this goodie without having done the thing. All right. When I give this assignment to people, when we're talking about motivation and procrastination, the hardest part of this assignment with people is they think they have to come up with a brand new reward that they would never have used before. And that's always the tricky part, is that they think they need to come up with one, but they really don't. You just have to ask yourself, what would I rather be doing instead? And so let me see if I can do this right here. I'm in my office here, and there's a stack of papers here, and that's my paperwork stack right there. And right now it's not too bad, but I have got some paperwork that I need to do. I've probably got about 2 or 3 hours worth, a bunch of notes to do and some reports and things of that nature. Here's what I would rather do. I'd rather go get coffee and go walk around the office here and see who else's door is open and go visit and chat. And so I've got this work to do that I need to do, but I'd rather do the coffee stuff. I can use the two. I can use this as leverage to get this done. And so I can say to myself, okay, you want to go get coffee. Why don't you do 30 minutes of paperwork? Once you've done 30 minutes, reward yourself by going to get some coffee and go see if any of your colleagues have their door open and go visit and that kind of thing. And by doing that and holding myself to it, then my paperwork stack will get down, especially when the motivation or I'm procrastinating a little bit on that kind of stuff. So again, I'm not inventing a brand new reward. All I'm doing is thinking to myself, what would I rather be doing? For me, some of the rewards at work, I don't do the cigars anymore because my kids are too old and I don't want them seeing me smoke. So this was before then. I don't want to have that conversation where they're coming up to me with tears in their eyes saying, Daddy, you're going to die because you're smoking, a cigar. I don't want that kind of conversation. So I quit before they got to that point. In fact, I told myself, this is kind of a silly story, good story. I like the story. I told myself that I was going to quit when they did ask me that question. And they were probably 5 and 7 at the time, and they hadn't yet. We lived next door to 4 older boys that were a couple years older. The youngest one was maybe a year or 2 older than my oldest boy. And he came over when I was smoking out in the yard there, pulling the weeds, I'm assuming, probably. He came over with tears in his eyes, saying I needed to quit because I was going to die if I didn't. And I thought to myself, if I'm getting the neighbor boy to cry over my smoking, I probably should quit before my boys do the crying and that kind of stuff. So that got me to quit. And that was probably a good, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. So back to the procrastination in question. I kind of want to open it up to people here and see if people have some ideas. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. With the procrastination, there's a good 8 to 10 techniques that are out there that help. I just got a message from work stuff here, so I apologize. I got a little distracted there. But this is my favorite, the grandma's rule one. When I am struggling, trying to jumpstart some behavior, some tasks that I really don't want to do, this is my go-to. This is my default setting. And I try to find some kind of reward. Having some rewards, knowing what you will jump through hoops for is important. If I said to you something like, okay, I want you to do this yucky task. I want you to get your taxes done. And if you got them done by the time I see you next week, I'm going to give you $10,000. And I really had $10,000 to give you, and really was, all of us would have our taxes done by next week. All of us. And so this reward principle works. Obviously, there isn't going to be $10,000 to give away, but find the rewards, the things that you're going to jump through the hoops on for some of these kinds of things. For me, it might be, like I said, the cup of coffee. Mine seem to revolve around food. So sometimes it's just, I'm going to barbecue up a steak at night. We'll sometimes do it. Dairy Queen blizzards and milkshakes will do it for me. Sometimes I will use videos. So I like the old Clint Eastwood shoot 'em up spaghetti westerns, and even the Dirty Harry's, the old Dirty Harry thing. So I might hop on Netflix and watch those as rewards sometimes for myself. Computer games. So hop on the computer and dink around on some of those things. So those are my rewards that sometimes will help me jump through the hoops on these kinds of things. So again, don't try to feel like you got to make up brand new rewards. Think about the stuff that you would jump through the hoops for. Okay. Some more dad jokes. Why is Peter Pan always flying? Because he never lands. Never land? That's where
Oh,
I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me.
oh.
I know, they're bad, aren't they? 5/4 of people admit they're bad at fractions. There's another one like that back in my stats class that the stats professor said. He said there are three kinds of statisticians: those that can count and those that can't.
Oh.
Okay, one more here. Don't leave.
Before you get to one more, there's a note here. Tomorrow, somebody wrote, tomorrow is not a labor-saving device.
Ah, that is nice.
That's a nice little quote. Yeah. Okay, one more dad joke. Go ahead.
That is a nice one. There was that famous book that was out a while ago that talked about mindfulness and all of that kind of stuff. But the title of it had the same thing that whoever wrote that about the tomorrow thing, The Power of Now. But that's more about mindfulness and being in the moment and all that kind of stuff. But the title of it, when I first saw the title, I was thinking, wow, that is a motivation that a good way to remember I need to do it now, because there is no tomorrow. There is no nothing that way when it comes to time. I either do it now or not, kind of thing. So one more joke. I lost my job at the bank on my first day. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over. Okay. Positive behaviors. How do we get some positive behaviors going? This is referred to as domino research, or at least I refer to it as domino research, and I'll explain what I mean here in a minute or two. Here is what they did with the research, and then we'll talk about how we can apply it to our lives. They took two groups of people and put them into, or took people and they put them into two groups. And each of these groups were given a list of about 30 things that the lifestyle gurus tell us we need to do more of. Sit up straight, smile, drive defensively, drink more water, exercise, all of those kinds of things that we're supposed to do more of. And when we would read that list of 20 or 30 things that are on there, most of us, when we would read the list, would go, yeah, I need to do some of these things more. Yeah, we'd be going, yep, those are important things to do, kind of stuff. Okay, so they got the list. They each had these lists, and the people in the groups are going, yeah, those are things I need to do more of. Both groups would meet weekly, and everybody would there'd be a support group component to it. So everybody was encouraging everybody to do these things a little bit better, and how you doing and all that kind of stuff. And there would be an educational component to it. So somebody might come in and talk about different ways to exercise, as an example, and so that people might try some different things out. So both groups are the same. In the first group, they just told them, okay, work on these 30 or 40 different things that are out there. On the second group, they told them, pick one and forget about the other 20 or 30 items. Pick one and stack the deck and make sure you get that one thing done. Forget about the rest. Then they measured to see how well each group was doing. For the first group, all of them. For the second group, they were looking at all of them except the one that they were going to stack the deck and do better on. Okay? So all the stuff that I was in essence supposed to ignore because I'm just working on this one type of thing. So if I'm supposed to be working on drinking more water, they are now measuring me on whether I wear my seatbelt more often type of thing. Okay? This second group beat the pants off of the first group. And so the idea is, and here's where the domino, why they call this domino research, or I call it that. If you Googled that, you wouldn't get that. But why I call it dominoes is they use the analogy of dominoes. And if you think about when we were kids and we'd stack the dominoes up, I only need to push one domino to get these ripple effects that are out there. And after I read that research, I started thinking to myself, there's some truth there. When I exercise and get myself to the gym, I tend to do those things a little bit better. When I'm at Hornbacher's, which is a local grocery store that's pretty popular in our community here, when I go to Hornbacher's to pick up the milk and the eggs on the way home, and the Snickers bar is calling my name in the checkout aisle, if I've just worked out, it's a lot easier to say no to that Snickers bar versus if I hadn't, even though I'm not even working on eating Snickers bar or not kind of thing. If I've been working out and I go to the restaurants, I'm more likely to order water versus Dr. Pepper, which is kind of my favorite soda drink there. And I'm more likely to get a salad versus, the Burger King Whopper kind of stuff. And when I'm driving around, if I've worked out, I'm feeling better about myself. I'm driving, I'm more defensive. If somebody cuts me off, I'm less likely to flip them off or yell at them, all because I'm working out. I'm not working on these kinds of things, but because I got some of these positive things going, I'm going to have these ripple effects. In my life, exercise is one of those. Here's one that sounds kind of silly, and I'm embarrassed to say it, and embarrassed to say it today in case you can see my shirt, because it isn't ironed, but one of my dominoes is ironing my clothes the night before work. If I iron my clothes, if I take 5 minutes to pick out what I'm going to wear the next day and iron it, I wake up feeling so much better. I'm not scrambling trying to find the least wrinkled item and swearing at myself because, maybe my favorite pair of pants is, in the wash still kind of thing. If my clothes are ironed, I'm looking better. Because I'm looking better, I'm more confident. I'm walking better. Because I'm walking better, people are interacting with me a little bit more, smiling at me, greeting me. I'm saying their name. All of that positive stuff is happening, all because I took 5 minutes the night before to iron my clothes. Okay. There was a famous admiral or military general or something like that who about 5 years ago did a famous commencement speech at West Point or the Naval Academy or one of those big time types of things. And he said, the most important thing you do every day is make your bed. For that, and it's just kind of a famous story that kind of came out. That domino for that admiral was making the bed. If you made that bed in the morning, everything else started to fall into place. Maybe what Andre was saying about the spilt milk story might have applied to that one person. If that person didn't yell at the kiddo for spilling milk on his outfit, maybe the rest of the day gets better because of the domino things kind of falling into play there. All of us are going to have different dominoes. So the dominoes that work for me may not work for you. The ones that work for you may not work for the next person down there. Finding those dominoes are important. And again, think about the dominoes. If my domino is too far apart and I push it over, the next domino is not going to happen. And so finding the ones that get you the ripple effects work. So the assignments that I give people on this as they are trying to discover this is to try to figure out which ones do get those ripple effects. on purpose, stack the deck so that's happening, and then watch to see 3 or 4 or 5 of these dominoes just kind of fall without even working on it at all. Okay. So that's the assignment I give people, because you got to kind of discover it, and it's a little bit of trial and error. Once you find your dominoes and you got it down to 2 or 3 or 4, and I truly have 3, mine are exercising, ironing my clothes, and making sure I take my medications, because I'm one of those that forget them often type of stuff, unfortunately. But those are my 3 dominoes that I'm aware of that get a lot of this ripple effect. When I start doing my self-evaluation, hey Ken, how are you doing? I don't have to look at all aspects of my life. I only have to look at 3 areas. And it's easy. Did I get my butt to the gym? Did I iron my clothes? Did I take my medicine? Those are all simple yes or no questions. And it's prescriptive. So if I'm feeling like I'm kind of screwing up in my life, that things aren't going so great, I can reduce it down to just these 3 things to kind of keep things going. So I've simplified everything on that. So with this, what I would encourage you to do, and what I try to do with some of my patients here, is we try to explore what the dominoes are. And once you find out what 2, 3, 4, 5 of these dominoes are, life gets so simple, because then all you got to do is focus in on stacking the deck to make them happen. For people of faith, this one happens to be a big one too. And so for my Catholic friends that I see, getting to mass is important. For a lot of people of faith, doing your prayers or your Bible study on a daily basis is one of these dominoes. You do that, you feel better, and you get all these ripple effects that happen. For some people, it might be making sure you do some volunteer work. So I have somebody who works with hospice, and I won't say what they do with hospice, because you might know them, because it's kind of a unique thing. But when she does some of those things that she's supposed to do with hospice, everything just kind of falls into place. It doesn't mean that the day is perfect, but their attitude and all of that kind of happens. So open it up for questions or comments on that one. I got another joke or two, dad joke or two here. I think I got 2 left here.
Are we going to go out on dad jokes, people? Okay, I see some head nods.
All right. I got 2 more. What kind of shoes does a lazy person wear? Loafers.
Oh, of course.
Yes. And this one here, I think I chuckled the most at this one. I got 1 more after this, 2 more actually. If the early bird gets the worm, I'll sleep in until there's pancakes. And the last one. What do you call a toothless bear? A gummy bear.
Oh, that's bad.
Yes, they are. But I'm a dad, and I'm allowed to tell dad jokes, so I'm going to stick with it.